She said sorry for the 4th time this year, and you believed her again. You already know how this ends. You knew it the 1st time. You knew it the 3rd time. And yet, somewhere between her tears and your silence, you convinced yourself this time was different. It never is. This is not a story about her. This is a story about you and the quiet machinery inside your mind that keeps opening the same door to the same wolf. Forgiveness feels holy. We are taught it is the mark of a good soul, the proof of strength, the sign of a person who has risen above pettiness. But somewhere along the way, forgiveness stopped being a choice and became a compulsion. And a compulsion is not virtue. It is a wound wearing virtue's clothing. Here is the dark truth nobody tells you. The people who hurt you the most rarely fear losing you. They fear losing the version of you that keeps forgiving. That version is profitable. That version is safe to exploit. And somewhere inside you already sense this, even if you have never said it out loud. There is a darker layer beneath even that, one most people never reach, and we will get there. But first, you need to understand why your forgiveness was never really about them at all. Think about the last time someone crossed a line with you. A friend who mocked you in front of others. A partner who lied about where they were. A parent who wounded you with words sharp enough to leave scars decades later. In that moment, something in you screamed. But within hours, sometimes minutes, you were already building their defense in your head. Maybe they were stressed. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I am overreacting. That voice is not kindness. That voice is fear wearing the mask of understanding. Machiavelli understood something most moral philosophers refuse to admit. Humans do not act from the goodness we imagine in them. They act from incentive. And the person who hurts you again and again has learned, through your own repeated forgiveness, exactly what the cost of hurting you is. Nothing. You have shown them, transaction by transaction, that your love comes with no consequences attached. And in the absence of consequence, cruelty does not shrink. It grows bolder. This is the part that stings. You were not weak because you loved too much. You were weak because you never let your love carry a price. Real trust is not a blank check. It is a contract, and contracts have terms. When you forgive without requiring change, you are not offering grace. You are financing your own betrayal. Now here is where it gets darker, because the reason runs deeper than fear of confrontation. Somewhere in your past, forgiveness became tangled with your sense of worth. A child who is only shown love after apologizing enough times learns a devastating lesson early. Acceptance must be earned through suffering, and peace only arrives after enough pain has been endured. That child grows into an adult who mistakes exhaustion for intimacy. If it did not cost you something, it does not feel real. So you keep forgiving, not because you are naive, but because somewhere inside, pain has become the entry fee for connection. Sit with that for a second. It is uncomfortable, but discomfort is where truth usually hides. Think about the people who have stayed longest in your life. Are they the ones who never hurt you, or the ones who apologized the most beautifully? Notice the pattern. We do not fall in love with people who never wound us. We fall in love with the relief that follows the wound. The apology becomes the high. The rupture becomes the ritual. And rituals, once formed, are almost impossible to walk away from, because the body starts craving the return to peace more than it ever craved the absence of pain in the first place. Machiavelli never asked people to be cruel. He asked them to be clear-eyed. He said it is safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both, because love is fragile and dependent on gratitude. A bond men break whenever it benefits them, while fear depends on dread of punishment. which never fails. Translate that ruthless political insight into your own life and the lesson becomes brutal and simple. People will treat you exactly as well as your boundaries force them to. Not 1 inch more. Every time you forgave without a boundary, you were not being loved back. You were being managed. And this is the open loop we planted at the very beginning. Remember the wolf at your door. We are circling back to it now because the wolf was never a stranger. The wolf was invited, fed, and forgiven into staying over and over by your own hand. That is the darkest truth in all of this. You were never simply a victim of betrayal. You became, without realizing it, the architect of your own repeated pain, one forgiveness at a time. This does not mean you are to blame for what they did to you. It means you hold more power in this story than you have ever let yourself believe. Power is the word people flinch from when talking about relationships, because we like to imagine love exists outside of power entirely. It does not. Every relationship, romantic, familial, professional, is a negotiation of power, whether anyone admits it or not. And forgiveness, real forgiveness, is one of the most powerful tools a human being can wield, precisely because it is scarce. The moment you hand it out freely, without cost, without change demanded, you devalue the very currency that could have protected you. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. When was the last time you forgave someone and they actually changed? Not apologized. Changed. If you are struggling to think of an example, that silence is your answer. There is a reason this stings more than ordinary betrayal. It is not just what they did to you. It is what you allowed yourself to become in order to keep them close. Smaller, quieter, easier to disappoint. Somewhere in the process of forgiving so often, you shrank your own expectations down to the size of their worst behavior and called that shrinking peace. Machiavelli warned rulers never to rely on the goodwill of others for their security, because goodwill can vanish the instant it becomes inconvenient. Apply this to your own life. The people who hurt you are not evil masterminds. Most of them do not even see themselves as cruel, but they have learned, through your patterns, that your goodwill does not vanish. It regenerates, endlessly, like a resource they can mine without consequence. And here is the part that will feel like a blade to the chest. You have taught people how to treat you through your reactions, not your words. What you tolerate in silence becomes the standard. What you forgive without change becomes the rule. Somewhere along the way, you built the very cage you now complain about, one soft, well-meaning forgiveness at a time. This is not a call to become cold, bitter, or vengeful. That is the trap on the opposite end, and it destroys just as many lives as blind forgiveness does. The answer is not to stop forgiving. The answer is to stop forgiving for free. Real strength looks like this. Forgiveness offered only alongside a demand for real, visible, sustained change. Not promises, not tears. Change you can measure. If someone violates your trust and nothing in their behavior shifts afterward, you have not forgiven them. You have simply trained them. This is where Machiavelli's coldest insight becomes strangely liberating. He believed a wise leader must sometimes appear merciful while actually protecting their position with calculated distance. You do not need to announce your boundaries with rage. You need to enforce them with quiet, unshakable consistency. Say less. Watch more. Let your actions, not your explanations, become the consequence they were never taught to expect. The people who keep hurting you are counting on one thing above all else: that your love will always outlast your self-respect. Prove them wrong and everything changes, not through cruelty, through discipline. So return to that moment at the very beginning. her fourth apology, your familiar ache of almost believing her again. That moment was never really about her sincerity. It was a mirror showing you exactly how much unearned power you had handed away, one forgiveness at a time. The wolf did not break down your door. You kept holding it open, calling it grace. Here is the brutal lesson, the one no one wants to hear but everyone needs to. Forgiveness without change is not love. It is surrender dressed in noble language. The moment you demand growth as the price of your grace, you stop being someone's safest target and become someone's hardest-earned reward. That is not coldness. That is the quiet, dangerous power of a person who finally understands their own worth. Forgive if you must, but never again for free.